Broke black single dad helps rich woman fix her car. Next morning, a helicopter lands at his door. The late afternoon sun cast a golden hue across the quiet, run-down street of East Oakdale, a forgotten corner of Atlanta where dreams were often shelved behind overdue bills and broken promises. On the cracked driveway of a modest two-bedroom house, 34-year-old Marcus Hill crouched beside his rusty 2003 Ford Escape, wiping oil off his hands with the corner of his threadbare workshirt. His 6-year-old son, Isaiah, sat cross-legged on the porch, homework papers fluttering in the breeze as he practiced writing the word engineer over and over again. "You think engineers get to work on cars like this, Daddy?" Isaiah asked without looking up. Marcus gave a tired chuckle, standing to stretch his sore back. "Not unless their boss is cheap," he replied. "Or unless the car belongs to their boss's boss's boss." Isaiah giggled. Marcus smiled at the sound. That laugh was the one thing that kept him grounded, even when the world spun too fast and too hard. The truth was, Marcus wasn't a mechanic by trade. He was once a warehouse foreman, laid off during the pandemic and still scraping by doing odd jobs for cash. He worked weekends at a local diner, helped neighbors fix things, and picked up construction shifts when they came. It was survival, not living. But through it all, he held on for Isaiah, the one person he couldn't let down. As Marcus packed away his tools, a sleek white Porsche Panamera crawled to a stop near the end of the block, clearly out of place in the dusty neighborhood. The engine idled for a moment before the door opened, and a woman in a sharp navy pantsuit stepped out, frustration painted across her flawless face. A clicking sound echoed from beneath the car. "Seriously?" "Not now," the woman muttered, fumbling with her phone before groaning. "No signal? Come on." Marcus watched her from a distance. Her heels sank into the cracked pavement, and she stared helplessly at the open hood, which she had popped but clearly didn't know what to do with. Something about her wasn't just rich. She carried herself like someone who owned the building, the street, maybe even the city. "Need a hand?" Marcus called out, wiping his hands again and grabbing his old toolkit. She looked up sharply, eyes narrowing for a second before scanning him. Oil-stained clothes, calloused hands, deep-set tired eyes. Yeah, I guess. It just started making this clicking noise and then the engine shut off." He approached calmly, respectful, not wanting to spook her. "Mind if I take a look? Name's Marcus. I live just there." The woman hesitated, then nodded. Alicia Whitmore." The name didn't ring a bell for him, but her face seemed familiar, maybe someone from a billboard or TV commercial. Marcus leaned under the hood, poked around, and within minutes had the diagnosis. "You got a loose battery terminal. Probably got jostled." "You got tools in the car?" "No," Alicia sighed. "I don't even know how to check tire pressure. I was just on my way from a board meeting. Thought I'd take a shortcut. GPS rerouted me through this mess." "Yeah, well, welcome to East Oakdale," Marcus said with a small grin. 15 minutes later, with a borrowed bolt from one of Marcus's spare parts and a makeshift fix, her Porsche roared back to life. Alicia's jaw dropped. "You're kidding me. That's it?" "Wasn't much. Just needed tightening." "But you should get a mechanic to take a proper look at it soon. Could turn serious if it comes loose again." Alicia stared at him for a long moment, like she wasn't used to people who didn't want something from her. "Thank you," she finally said. "Really, that was unexpectedly kind." He shrugged. "No big deal." "You were stuck. Could have been anyone." "But it wasn't anyone. It was you." They shook hands. Her fingers were soft, his rough and worn, but the gesture lingered. Just as she was about to leave, Isaiah ran up, holding a piece of paper. Mister! he called out breathlessly, then turned to Alicia. Miss, look, my daddy helped you even though we didn't have dinner yet. Isn't he the best? Isaiah, Marcus called gently, but Alicia knelt down and took the drawing. It was a crude crayon sketch of Marcus fixing her car, a smiley face over the Porsche, and a stick figure woman in high heels giving a thumbs up. You drew this just now? She asked, surprised. I like drawing. Daddy says I could be a car designer if I keep working hard. Alicia glanced between them, her expression unreadable. Then she smiled and handed the paper back. I think you'll be more than a car designer, kid. She climbed into the Porsche, the engine humming like nothing had ever gone wrong. As she drove away, Marcus watched until the car disappeared behind the row of worn-down homes. Later that night, Isaiah fell asleep on the couch watching cartoons, and Marcus sat by the window, sipping weak coffee from a chipped mug. The quiet of the night settled around him, until the silence was shattered by a low, rhythmic thump in the distance. He stood up, alarmed. The sound grew louder, unmistakable now. A helicopter. The windows rattled slightly as the chopper came into view, floodlights sweeping across the neighborhood before it descended slowly, landing right in the middle of the empty baseball field across the street. Marcus grabbed his coat and ran outside, just as neighbors peeked through blinds and stepped out, murmuring in confusion. The side door of the helicopter opened, and two uniformed personnel stepped down, scanning the crowd. Marcus Hill? One of them called out with authority. Marcus froze. Yeah, I'm Marcus. The woman who stepped out behind them was not who he expected. Alicia, now in a more casual outfit, but still radiating command. Mr. Hill, she said, voice crisp but warm. I think it's time we talk, properly. He stared at her, stunned. You're in a helicopter. Why? She smiled. Because the man who helped me yesterday deserves a second chance at the life he once dreamed of. And I have an offer for you. The entire block went silent. Marcus blinked. You got the wrong guy. I don't think I do. Isaiah had just appeared at the porch, rubbing his eyes, small voice trailing off. Daddy, what's going on? Marcus didn't have an answer. Not yet. But everything was about to change. The crowd was still gathering near the baseball field as the helicopter's rotors slowed to a hush. A few folks had phones out, trying to record, while others just stood slack-jawed, their everyday routine shattered by the surreal scene playing out in front of them. No one from East Oakdale had ever seen a chopper land here, especially not one that seemed to be looking for a single father who barely had a working cell phone. Marcus felt the weight of every eye on him, but all he could focus on was Alicia. She didn't look like a CEO now. She looked like someone who had made up her mind and wasn't used to being questioned. He crossed his arms, still cautious. You gonna tell me what this is about? Or are we just gonna keep putting on a show for the whole block? Alicia gave a small smile. I get it. This is a lot. But I didn't come here for show. I came here for you. Marcus narrowed his eyes. I fixed your car, not saved your life. You really think showing up in a helicopter's the right way to thank someone like me? It's not just about gratitude, she replied. Can we talk inside? Somewhere more private. Marcus hesitated. He looked at Isaiah, still barefoot on the porch, blinking through sleep and confusion. Alicia softened. We'll take it slow. I just need 15 minutes. Marcus gave a curt nod and led them across the street toward his house. Neighbors whispered and watched, the whispers turning into wild speculation before the front door even closed. Inside, Isaiah curled up on the couch again, still listening, still watching. Marcus didn't ask him to leave. He sat across from Alicia, arms still folded, posture defensive. So talk, Marcus said. What's really going on? Alicia leaned forward, her eyes sharp but kind. You ever heard of Whitmore Solutions? Marcus frowned. Sounds familiar. Some corporate thing, right? I don't exactly follow Forbes. My father started it 30 years ago. I took over after he passed. We focus on infrastructure, logistics, and clean energy systems. We're building community centers in underserved areas. But that's the official version. Marcus's brow furrowed. What's the unofficial version? We also invest in people. Quietly. Individuals who show extraordinary integrity, resilience, and character under pressure. People who don't wait for cameras or credit to do the right thing. People like you. He sat back slowly, blinking. So, this is some kind of charity thing? No, this is an opportunity, a job. A new start. I already have a job. Actually 3, if you count hustling scrap for gas money. I'm not talking about a paycheck, Alicia said. I'm talking about purpose. We're launching a new pilot program in Atlanta. I need someone who knows these communities, who lives the reality, not just studies it from a glass office downtown. We can train you, support you. You'd be the face of it. You'd help design the solution. Marcus shook his head, confused. Why me? You don't even know me. I saw more in the 15 minutes you spent fixing my car than I've seen in boardrooms all year. You didn't hesitate. You didn't talk down to me, even when I was lost. And your son, he drew a picture of you as a hero. That stuck with me. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. Lady, no offense, but I'm a single dad with debt, no college degree, and barely a working radiator. You really think I'm the guy to be anyone's face? Yes, she said, without missing a beat. Because you don't fake compassion. You don't perform for praise. And because people like you, smart, overlooked, underestimated, are exactly who this city needs. Marcus stood and paced, his mind spinning. You drop out of the sky, offer me a new life and expect me to just leap. You could be anybody. This could be some setup. Hell, I don't even know if you're telling the truth. Alicia reached into her bag and slid a folder across the table. Inside were documents, official contracts, NDAs, project outlines. At the bottom, one sheet was handwritten. What's this? He asked, lifting the page. It's your background check, Alicia said calmly. I had my people run it overnight. You've never been arrested. No complaints from clients. And you once anonymously paid for an elderly neighbor's gas bill during winter. Marcus's face froze. That ain't public record, he said quietly. Alicia met his eyes. We dig deep when we want to know someone's real character. His hands trembled slightly. You really watched me that close? Enough to know this offer isn't charity. It's investment. Before he could reply, Isaiah piped up from the couch. Is this like when they pick superheroes, Daddy? Marcus turned slowly. Alicia smiled. Kind of, yeah, she said. Except your dad doesn't need powers to make a difference. Isaiah grinned. Told you, Daddy. Marcus stared at them both. His chest felt tight. Part pride, part fear. What's the catch? He asked finally. Alicia stood. No catch, but it won't be easy. The board's already skeptical. You'd have to prove yourself. Fast. He looked back at the folder, then at the cracked walls of his living room. He thought about Isaiah. About the years he'd scraped by while the world passed him over. Maybe it was time the world noticed. I'll think about it, he said slowly. Alicia nodded. Good, but don't take too long. The board won't wait forever. She handed him a card. Call me when you're ready. And Marcus, this isn't about saving face. It's about building something real. She walked out without another word, leaving silence in her wake. Outside, the helicopter stirred back to life. Inside, Isaiah looked up. "Are we gonna ride in the helicopter next time, Daddy?" Marcus chuckled quietly, still staring at the card. "Maybe, buddy," he said. "Maybe next time we'll be flying it." Marcus sat alone on the porch that night, the street dim and quiet except for the occasional bark of a dog in the distance. The card Alicia had given him lay flat in his palm, its edges worn soft from hours of being turned and flipped. His phone sat beside him, screen lit, thumb hovering over the call button. He hadn't told anyone about the offer yet. Not Miss Loretta next door, not even Isaiah. It felt too big, too strange, like something that could vanish the moment he acknowledged it out loud. But deep inside, something was shifting. A voice that had long gone quiet had begun whispering again. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is your shot. The next morning, Marcus walked Isaiah to school like he always did, but this time his thoughts were miles away. While Isaiah skipped ahead humming a cartoon jingle, Marcus saw only boardrooms, suits, and a life he didn't recognize himself in. He walked back home slower, unsure of what he wanted more, to prove them wrong or not have to prove anything at all. Back at the house, the old radiator coughed to life as he stepped inside. The walls seemed smaller somehow, the ceiling lower. He looked around, thinking how long he'd lived like this. One paycheck away from disaster, always balancing hope and exhaustion. Without thinking, he picked up the phone and dialed the number on the card. Alicia answered on the second ring. "I figured I'd hear from you," she said. "I didn't say yes yet," Marcus replied. "But you didn't say no." He paused. "What happens if I do?" "You start tomorrow," she said simply. "We'll fly you to Atlanta for orientation. 2 weeks of training, meet the team, see the project from the inside. If it feels right, we make it official. If it doesn't, you walk away with a paycheck and a new perspective." Marcus let out a slow breath. "And if I mess up?" "We all do. The difference is whether you grow from it." That night, Marcus packed a single duffel bag, 2 pairs of jeans, 3 shirts, a jacket that still smelled faintly of motor oil. Isaiah helped, not fully understanding but sensing something important was happening. "Where you going, Daddy?" "Somewhere that might change our lives," Marcus said, ruffling his hair. Isaiah nodded solemnly. "Will they have pancakes?" Marcus laughed. "I'll make sure they do." The next morning, a black town car waited outside before dawn. As Marcus climbed in, he felt a knot form in his stomach. He hadn't left the state in over a decade, hadn't flown since he was 19, and thought he'd be a mechanic for life. The ride to the airport was quiet, but as the plane lifted off, Marcus felt something else rise with it, a flicker of belief. In Atlanta, Alicia was waiting at the terminal, dressed sharp but casual. She didn't offer a hug, just a warm smile and a firm handshake. "Welcome to day 1, she said. The facility wasn't what he expected. No glass towers or sterile cubicles. It was a converted warehouse filled with workstations, blueprints, and teams of engineers, urban planners, and community reps, all talking, all moving fast. They introduced Marcus to Darnell, a former teacher-turned-strategist. Then to Carla, a civil engineer from Chicago who had grown up in public housing. Each person had a story. Each of them had once been someone no one bet on. Over lunch, Alicia pulled Marcus aside. "There's someone I want you to meet," she said, guiding him to a corner office. Inside sat a woman in her 60s, gray dreadlocks piled high and glasses perched low on her nose. "This is Evelyn Monroe," Alicia said. "She was my father's right hand. She's blunt, brilliant, and doesn't suffer fools." Evelyn looked up. You're the mechanic? Marcus nodded. Name's Marcus. She gestured to the seat across from her. Sit. Let's see if you're worth the risk Alicia says you are. For the next hour, Evelyn drilled him. Not on degrees or credentials, but on instincts. What do you do when a community doesn't trust you? You listen first, then show up. And keep showing up. What do you say to a city council that only cares about profit? I show them what it costs when they ignore the people who keep the city alive. What do you do when someone calls you unqualified to your face? I let them talk, then I let my results speak louder. Evelyn leaned back, impressed but unreadable. He's green, but not dumb. I've seen worse, much worse. Marcus stood, shoulders squared. I'm not here to prove I belong to you. I'm here because someone believed I could build something better. That's what I'm showing up for. Evelyn cracked a smile. Well, damn. Looks like you've got a spine. Alicia stepped in as Marcus left the room. That went better than I expected. She's a firecracker, Marcus muttered. She's also on the board. And she likes you. That night, back in the modest company apartment, Marcus stared at the ceiling. Everything moved fast. Maybe too fast. But for once, it felt like he wasn't chasing the world. It was catching up to him. And yet, as he drifted off to sleep, a different worry crept in. The people in that warehouse believed in justice and progress. But Marcus knew the streets back home didn't care about idealism. He'd been given a shot, but the question gnawed at him. What would he have to sacrifice to keep it? And what if this world didn't want him after all? Marcus adjusted his tie in the mirror, still not used to the way it hugged his neck. The conference room he was about to step into wasn't just any room. It was the heart of the company's next big pitch, a community development initiative worth millions. And somehow, against all odds, he had a seat at the table. 2 weeks in, and Marcus had done more learning than sleeping. Late-night reading, early morning meetings, hours spent shadowing Alicia and Darnell. But every time someone questioned his background, he let the facts speak. His proposals were clear. His ideas grounded. He didn't speak corporate, but he spoke people, and that made him stand out. Today, though, the stakes were different. This wasn't just an internal meeting. Investors were flying in. City reps would be listening. And Marcus had been asked to co-present with Alicia. As he walked into the room, the energy shifted. Conversations paused, eyes turned, some curious, others doubtful. Marcus noticed the subtle looks exchanged between a pair of senior VPs sitting near the front. Both middle-aged, both white, both visibly uncomfortable. Alicia greeted him with a nod. Ready? As I'll ever be, he said. They launched into the presentation, Alicia opening with stats and vision. Then she handed it off to Marcus. He stepped forward, voice steady. I grew up in East Baltimore. I know what it's like to walk past boarded-up schools and busted streetlights. I know how it feels to be ignored. This project isn't about gentrification. It's about equity. It's about listening to the people who've been pushed out and bringing them back into the conversation. He clicked to a slide showing a proposed layout for affordable housing mixed with small business spaces. This isn't charity. It's smart. When a community thrives, the economy does too. There was a pause. Then slow, deliberate clapping from the back of the room. It was Evelyn Monroe. Her expression unreadable, but her presence impossible to miss. That, she said aloud, is how you pitch with purpose. The room slowly warmed. Questions were asked. Dialogue sparked. But as the meeting wrapped and people began filtering out, Marcus felt a chill behind him. One of the senior VPs, a man named Richard Shaw, approached. "That was an interesting perspective you gave." Marcus nodded. "Appreciate that. You've certainly got passion. But just a heads up, this space isn't always as welcoming as your speech suggests." Marcus looked him in the eye. "I've been unwelcome most of my life. I still show up." Richard gave a thin smile. "We'll see how long that lasts." Back in her office, Alicia slammed her notebook shut. "He's already starting," she muttered. "Who?" Marcus asked, though he already knew. "Shaw. He's been against bringing in anyone from outside the usual pool, especially you." "I figured," Marcus said. "He came at me with that backhanded passion compliment." "He's threatened," Alicia replied. "You're disrupting the comfort zone, and trust me, they don't like that." Marcus leaned against the wall. "So what now?" "We fight smarter," she said. "Every time you speak, you prove them wrong. Every time you show up, you show them you're not going anywhere." That night, Marcus called Isaiah. "Did you finish your homework?" "Yeah, but Miss Gomez gave us way too much math." Marcus laughed. "You'll survive. How's Grandma?" "She made meatloaf." "It wasn't yours, though." "I'll be back soon. 2 more days, okay?" Isaiah hesitated. "Are they treating you nice?" Marcus paused. "Some are. Some, not so much. Do you want to come home?" Marcus swallowed. "I want to make home better." After they hung up, Marcus sat in the silence. The glamour of his new opportunity was fading. What remained was grit, resistance, and the unsettling realization that the fight wasn't just about him. It was about every man like him who never got a shot, every kid like Isaiah waiting for proof that things could be different. The next day, Marcus showed up early for a roundtable discussion on community outreach. He had prepped all night. But when he got there, he found out the meeting had been moved, without his knowledge. He confronted the assistant. "I wasn't on the updated list," he asked. She looked nervous. I thought Alicia told you." "No, she didn't." "Who made the change?" "I'm not sure. I just followed the update sent from VP Shaw's office." Marcus didn't say anything. He just turned and walked straight to Alicia's office. "Shaw's playing dirty," he said before she even looked up. She didn't ask how he knew. "Let me handle it." "No," Marcus said. "I got this one." He waited until the board members were gathered for lunch, then calmly entered the dining room. "Hope I'm not interrupting," he said. Heads turned. "I just wanted to clarify that I wasn't informed about the meeting this morning. And if this is how we operate, then let's be honest about who we're excluding." Shaw looked up from his plate, annoyed. "Marcus, these things happen. We move meetings all the time." "Sure," Marcus said, "but I've been here 2 weeks and it's only ever happened to me." A hush fell over the room. Alicia stepped in. "He's right, and it stops now." Shaw stood, trying to maintain control. "This isn't personal," Marcus stepped forward. "That's where you're wrong. For people like me, it's always personal." The silence was thicker than concrete. But Marcus didn't care. He'd said what needed to be said, and for the first time, he felt the ground beneath him start to shift. He wasn't just surviving anymore, he was pushing back. Marcus sat on the worn bench outside the building, phone in hand, barely breathing. His heart was still racing from what had just happened in that lunchroom. He had spoken out, stood tall, and called out Richard Shaw in front of some of the most powerful people in the company. And now, silence. No word from Alicia, no email, no acknowledgement. His thumb hovered over his phone as he debated texting her, but something told him to wait. Across the city, Alicia paced in her office. She had defended Marcus publicly, and while she didn't regret it, the fallout was already starting. HR had called. Shaw had sent a strongly worded email to the board, subtly suggesting that Marcus might be too emotionally reactive to represent the company. She poured herself a glass of water and stared at the skyline, wondering how to fight a battle that was happening behind closed doors. Later that evening, Marcus returned home to Isaiah and his mother's apartment. The apartment was small, 2 bedrooms with creaky floors, but it smelled like dinner and safety. Isaiah ran up to him with excitement. "Dad, guess what? I got picked for the school debate team." Marcus knelt and pulled him in. "That's my boy." Isaiah looked up. "Did they clap for you today?" Marcus chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "Some clapped. Some didn't like what I said. But you said it anyway?" "Yeah," Marcus said. "I said it anyway." The moment was interrupted by a knock at the door. Marcus opened it to find a courier holding a thick manila envelope. "Mr. Marcus Reed." "Yeah?" The courier handed over the envelope and left without a word. Marcus shut the door, uneased. Inside was a formal HR complaint. Shaw had filed a grievance, citing Marcus's disruptive conduct and claiming he had created a hostile environment. Marcus sank onto the couch, eyes scanning the document. His hands trembled. "What's wrong, Dad?" Isaiah asked, sensing the shift. Marcus shook his head. "Nothing you need to worry about." But Alicia wasn't staying silent. The next morning, she stormed into the office of Evelyn Monroe. "Did you see this?" she demanded, slamming a copy of the HR complaint onto Evelyn's desk. Evelyn calmly picked it up and scanned it. "I did." "And?" "It's nonsense," Evelyn said. "But this is corporate warfare. Shaw knows exactly what he's doing. Then we counter." Evelyn looked up. "We?" "I'm not letting him run Marcus out just because he makes them uncomfortable. That man has done more for this project in 2 weeks than Shaw has in 5 years. Evelyn nodded slowly. "All right, but if we're going to fight, we do it smart. Find me proof, emails, witnesses, anything that shows Shaw's trying to sabotage Marcus." Meanwhile, Marcus was trying to focus on work, but the whispers were growing louder. Colleagues looked at him differently now. One man, a mid-level analyst, passed by him in the break room and muttered under his breath, "Should have known he wouldn't last." Marcus snapped around. "You got something to say to my face?" The man smirked and walked away. Back at his desk, Marcus opened his inbox to find his access to the internal proposal system had been revoked. "Unbelievable," he muttered. He stormed into IT. "I need access reinstated to the proposal board." The technician looked uncomfortable. "That came from Shaw's authorization. Said you weren't cleared to make changes." "I'm co-lead on the project," Marcus snapped. "I know, I'm sorry. You need VP approval to override." Marcus clenched his jaw. He called Alicia. "Now they're locking me out of the system. What's next? Cleaning out my desk." "I'm handling it," she said. "Evelyn's on board. We're digging." But that night, something unexpected happened. Marcus was walking home from the subway when a black SUV pulled up beside him. The tinted window rolled down slowly, and a familiar face leaned out, one he hadn't expected to see. "Marcus Reed?" the woman asked. "Yeah." "Who's asking?" "Detective Carla Barnes. Can we talk?" He froze. "About what?" "I need you to come with me. There's been a report involving falsified documents on a city contract. Your name came up." Marcus's stomach dropped. "What?" "I haven't touched anything like that." "Then you'll want to clear it up," she said flatly. He followed her into the SUV, heart pounding. At the precinct, Marcus sat under the harsh light of the interview room. "I need a lawyer," he said firmly. "You're not under arrest," Carla replied, "but someone used your name to approve a backdated contract for a bid your company just won." Marcus blinked, stunned. "That's not possible. Unless someone used your login, which, by the way, was reactivated at 3:42 a.m. last night." Marcus narrowed his eyes. "That wasn't me. We'll be pulling security logs and camera footage." When he left the station, Alicia was waiting in the parking lot. She had guessed he'd be taken in. "Someone's trying to frame you," she said. "I know. They're desperate." Marcus nodded. "Which means we're close to something they don't want us to find." That night, as Marcus sat on the rooftop of his building, Isaiah asleep inside, he realized something had changed. This wasn't just about office politics anymore. It was war, and he wasn't about to back down. Marcus stood at the rooftop rail, the city humming beneath him. He barely noticed the skyline. His thoughts were too loud. Someone inside the company had used his name, his credentials, and almost got him tangled in a criminal mess. That wasn't a mistake. That was deliberate. That was war. He looked down at his phone. No new messages. Alicia had said she was digging, but the silence made him restless. He stepped back into the apartment, quietly checking on Isaiah, who was asleep on the couch, arms around a stuffed dog. Marcus sat beside him for a minute, brushing a hand over his son's hair, grounding himself in what mattered. The next morning, Marcus arrived at work to find his badge rejected at the entrance. "Sir, it says you're on administrative leave," the security guard said, apologetic but firm. "That's not possible," Marcus replied. "I didn't get any notice." "Sorry, sir. You'll have to contact HR." He stood there for a second, stunned. Then he turned and walked away, heart thudding. As soon as he reached the sidewalk, his phone rang. It was Alicia. "I just found out. They're saying you compromised company data. Shaw's moving fast. He's using the fake login from the contract incident to claim you tampered with sensitive materials." "Of course he is," Marcus muttered, "and people are believing it." "For now, yes. But listen, Evelyn pulled old emails. Turns out Shaw's been manipulating timelines and budgets for years. We've got a trail, but we need something bigger, something direct." "A smoking gun." Marcus exhaled slowly. "Then I need to get inside that building." "That's impossible. You're locked out." "Not if I have help," he said, and hung up. Marcus reached out to the one person who owed him a favor, Jake Henson, a junior IT tech he'd once covered for when a mistake almost cost him his job. An hour later, they met in a coffee shop off Broadway. "You're really asking me to break into the system," Jake said, lowering his voice. "Not break in, just access what I already had before they froze me out." Jake rubbed his face. "Man, you know they're watching everything right now. I'm not asking you to pull anything illegal. Just log in from your end and check the security footage from the night the login happened. I need to prove I wasn't even in the building." Jake hesitated, then nodded. "All right. But if this gets me fired, you'll have my name on it. I promise." That night, Marcus waited at a quiet diner while Jake worked. At 11:03 p.m., his phone buzzed. "Jake, check your inbox." Marcus opened the file and stared at the screen. There it was, clear as day. A security cam still of Richard Shaw entering the server room at 3:39 a.m., 3 minutes before the unauthorized login. Marcus's stomach flipped. He wasn't just trying to frame him. Shaw was deep in this mess, deeper than anyone had guessed. And now, there was proof. He forwarded the image to Alicia and Evelyn. 30 minutes later, Alicia called. Her voice was calm, but he could hear the fire behind it. "This changes everything." "I'm going public," Marcus said. "No, not yet. If we want him gone for good, we do this the right way. HR won't be enough. But the board? If we present this at the next review meeting, with Evelyn behind us, they'll have no choice." "Review meetings next week." "Exactly." "You lay low. Let them think they've won." The next morning, Marcus stayed home. He cooked Isaiah pancakes, helped him with homework, and pretended everything was normal. But the whole time, he was planning. Later that week, he got a surprise visit. His mother stood in the doorway, face drawn. "You got a visitor, baby." Marcus turned to see a man in a dark suit enter the living room. Not a company man, not police. Federal. "Mr. Reed, my name is Agent Walsh. I'd like to ask you a few questions regarding Richard Shaw and his relationship with city development projects." Marcus blinked. "You're FBI?" "Correct." "Why me?" "We've been watching him for a while, but your name came up recently." "Contract fraud, manipulation of public funds. We believe you may have been targeted because you were close to uncovering a pattern." Marcus sat down slowly. "I've got proof." "Surveillance footage, emails, all of it." Walsh nodded. "Then I suggest you prepare. We'll need your full statement, and we'll need you at the next board meeting." Marcus stared at him. "Why?" "Because this time, Mr. Reed, we're not just exposing one man, we're cleaning house." That night, as Marcus tucked Isaiah into bed, he couldn't stop thinking about how close he'd come to losing everything. But now, the tides were turning. And he wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for every person who'd been silenced, stepped on, or overlooked. It was time they all had a voice. Marcus adjusted the collar of his blazer, the first suit he had worn in years. Isaiah looked up at him from the couch, eyes wide with admiration and worry. "Are you going to be okay, Daddy?" Marcus knelt down and smiled. "Yeah, buddy. I've got to go say some things in front of a lot of people today. But I'll be back before dinner. Promise?" "Cross my heart." Isaiah wrapped his arms around his dad's neck, and Marcus held him tighter than usual, knowing what today meant. Today wasn't just about clearing his name. It was about forcing the people at the top to finally listen. The conference room at Weller Global's downtown tower was brighter than he remembered. The long table was lined with board members in suits worth more than Marcus's car. At the far end sat Richard Shaw, calm, smug, sipping his coffee like he owned the building. Technically, he almost did. Alicia and Evelyn were already there. Evelyn gave him a subtle nod as he entered and placed a thick folder of documents on the table. The atmosphere shifted immediately. Murmurs rippled down the row of executives. "Mr. Reed," said Chairman Langston, folding his hands. "You requested this emergency appearance. Please be brief." "We are in the middle of quarterly review." "I'll keep it short," Marcus replied, voice even. "I'm here to clear my name, and to expose Mr. Shaw's ongoing misuse of company funds, fraudulent documentation, and attempt to frame me for corporate sabotage." Shaw leaned back, smirking. "That's a heavy accusation from a man recently put on administrative leave." "I have security footage from the night the breach occurred," Marcus continued, pulling out a still image. "That's Richard entering the server room minutes before the unauthorized login. I wasn't even on the premises." He handed the footage to the board. Silence fell over the room. Some leaned in to examine the image, while others shot glances toward Shaw, whose confident smirk had stiffened. "Conveniently timed evidence," Shaw muttered. "I also have emails," Alicia added, stepping in. "Dozens of messages showing timeline manipulation, forged signatures, and inflated invoices tied to public development contracts." "And me," Evelyn said, rising from her chair. I ignored it for too long, but I've reviewed the files and there is no doubt. Mr. Shaw has misused his position for personal gain. If the board does not act, I will bring this to the state attorney. That got their attention. Chairman Langston turned to Shaw. Do you have anything to say to this, Richard? Shaw stood slowly, carefully buttoning his jacket. Yes. I say this is a coordinated attempt to undermine me by a disgruntled employee, a jilted analyst, and a woman who never had the spine to run this company properly. Murmurs rose again, this time with edge. Marcus stepped forward, voice cutting through the noise. You know what I used to believe? That if I just kept my head down, worked hard, and stayed in my lane, people would see me for my value. But guys like you make sure that doesn't happen. You took one look at me, black, single dad, working the night shift, and decided I was disposable, but I'm not. And today, neither is the truth. At that moment, the doors opened, and 2 agents from the FBI walked in. Agent Walsh nodded to Marcus before turning to the board. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Shaw is being taken into custody for questioning related to federal contract fraud and obstruction of justice. We have a warrant. Shaw's face went white. He stumbled back a step. This is insane. I have rights. You do, Walsh said calmly, and you can explain yourself on the record. The agents cuffed him and began leading him out. He turned his head toward Marcus, fury in his eyes. This isn't over. Marcus didn't flinch. Yes, it is. After the room settled, Chairman Langston rose. Thank you, Mr. Reed. You've done this company a service. We will begin internal restructuring immediately. As Marcus exited the room, Alicia caught up to him. That was intense, she said. I wasn't sure they'd listen. They didn't have a choice. Outside the building, the sun had finally broken through the clouds. Marcus looked up, feeling the warmth on his face, the kind of light that felt like a fresh start. Isaiah was waiting for him at home. The weight that had lived on his back for months suddenly lifted. He had no idea what came next. But for the first time in a long time, he knew who he was, and that was more than enough. The morning air was crisp, the kind that carried the scent of wet grass and new beginnings. Marcus stood on the porch of his modest home, coffee mug warming his hands, eyes scanning the horizon. The neighborhood was quiet, peaceful. Just a few months ago, he wouldn't have believed a moment like this was even possible. Inside, Isaiah was sitting at the kitchen table, munching on cereal, his backpack slung carelessly over one shoulder. You're gonna be late, Dad, he called through a mouthful of Cheerios. Marcus smiled. I'm not the one dragging his feet. Isaiah grinned and ran to him, wrapping his arms around Marcus's waist. You're really gonna take the job, huh? Marcus crouched down. Yeah. But only if I can still walk you to school every morning. Isaiah nodded solemnly, like a man closing a serious deal. Deal. The past few weeks had been a blur. After Richard Shaw's arrest, the company went through a major shakeup. Evelyn took over as interim CEO, Alicia was promoted to senior legal counsel, and Marcus. He was offered a role he'd never imagined. Director of Community Initiatives, with the power to implement programs for affordable housing and small business support. Real change, from the ground up. But even more than the title or the paycheck, what mattered to him was the chance to finally be part of something that wasn't built on lies, that didn't come at the expense of others. He'd taken Evelyn's offer, but with conditions. Transparency, accountability, inclusion. If he was going to be part of the system, he was going to help fix it. That afternoon, the company held a press conference to publicly address the scandal, unveil their new leadership team, and introduce the man who had brought it all to light. Reporters buzzed as Marcus stepped to the podium, the mic catching his steady breath. I wasn't born into money. I wasn't handed connections or power. I'm just a dad trying to raise a good kid and do right by my community. And when I stumbled onto something wrong, I didn't stay silent. I couldn't. Not because I wanted revenge or recognition, but because I wanted my son to grow up in a world where truth still matters. Flashes clicked from the cameras, but Marcus kept his gaze straight ahead, calm and unwavering. It shouldn't take someone with a badge or a title to be heard, but too often it does. That's what has to change. Not just at this company, but everywhere. Back at home later that evening, Marcus and Isaiah watched the press coverage on TV. The news anchor's voice boomed through the living room. In an unprecedented move, Weller Global has appointed Marcus Reed, a single father and former security staffer, to lead their community impact division following the company's internal corruption scandal. Isaiah looked at his dad, eyes full of awe. You're kind of famous now, Marcus chuckled. Yeah? Think we'll still be able to get a table at Ricky's without waiting an hour? As they laughed, a sudden sound shook the room, a low hum, building into a roar. Marcus stepped outside to see a helicopter hovering over the cul-de-sac. Neighbors peeked from windows, kids pointed in excitement. The chopper began its descent, right in front of Marcus's yard. From inside stepped Evelyn, dressed in a sleek blazer, smiling. I told you we'd send a car, she called over the noise. Didn't say it'd have wheels. Marcus blinked, stunned. What is this? Your first board meeting is in an hour, and let's just say the new partners are expecting a hell of a first impression. Isaiah stood beside him, wide-eyed. Can I come? Evelyn smiled. Absolutely. Marcus looked at his son, then back at the chopper, laughter spilling from his chest. He never wanted fame. He never asked for power. But maybe, just maybe, this was his time to make something bigger than himself. Something that lasted. As they lifted into the sky, the houses below grew smaller, but the purpose in his chest only grew stronger. And if there's one thing this journey had taught him, it's this. Sometimes, the most ordinary people carry the power to shake the whole system. All it takes is a little courage, a lot of heart, and the will to stand up when no one else will. Because justice doesn't always knock on your door. Sometimes it lands in your front yard. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think a little deeper about the world we live in, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Every voice matters, and every story has the power to make a difference. Let's keep telling the ones that do.